In Washington, D.C., a storm is brewing again. A new case before the Supreme Court could decide the future of the National Firearms Act, and with it, your right to own certain rifles in America. But in a twist no one saw coming, it's the Trump Department of Justice now defending the same restrictions that gun owners have been fighting for decades. This is not a rumor. This is United States versus Robinson, and what happens next could change the Second Amendment forever. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Firearms Rights Advisor, where we break down every Supreme Court move that affects your right to bear arms.
Chapter 1. The Case That Shook the Courts. It all began with one man, Mr. Robinson, and one rifle. In 2022, police in Florida responded to reports of a suspicious vehicle parked outside a home. Inside, they found Robinson asleep in the driver's seat, with a rifle stock beside him. When officers woke him, he tried to drive away, but was arrested. Inside his car, an unregistered short-barreled rifle. He claimed he bought it legally in Tampa, unaware it needed federal registration. But under the National Firearms Act, that was enough for a conviction. He was sentenced to probation and house arrest, and that conviction became the foundation for a constitutional battle now reaching the Supreme Court.
Chapter 2. The Challenge. Is the NFA constitutional? Robinson appealed, arguing that the NFA's restrictions violate both the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment. He said the law acts as an unconstitutional tax on gun ownership, and the Congress had overstepped its power. But the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed. They said the NFA does not violate the Second Amendment. Their reasoning? A nearly century-old case, U.S. versus Miller, which labeled certain short-barreled firearms as dangerous and unusual weapons. The court ruled, until the Supreme Court says otherwise, Miller still stands.
Chapter 3. The Supreme Court steps in. Now the case has reached the highest court in the nation. Robinson's petition asks the Supreme Court two key questions. Does punishing citizens for owning unregistered short-barreled rifles violate the Second Amendment? Does that punishment exceed Congress's taxing powers under the Constitution? At first, the government didn't even respond, but then the Supreme Court ordered them to, and when they did, the Trump DOJ shocked everyone. Chapter 4. The Trump DOJ's stand. In their response, the Trump administration doubled down. They argued the NFA is constitutional, that short-barreled rifles are still dangerous and unusual, and that they're not typically possessed for lawful purposes. They said these weapons are especially susceptible to criminal misuse. Sound familiar? It's the same language we've heard for years from anti-gun advocacy groups, but this time it came straight from the Trump Department of Justice.
Chapter 5. History repeating itself. This isn't the first time. Just weeks earlier, the Trump DOJ made the same argument in another case, U.S. versus Rush, also defending the NFA and asking the Supreme Court to deny review. Two cases, one message. The Trump administration has now argued twice that the NFA does not violate the Second Amendment. Even more surprising, they're telling the Supreme Court to stay out of it, to let the lower courts keep the NFA intact, untouched.
Chapter 6. The Bigger Picture. So what's really happening here? Why would a pro-gun administration defend a law so many Americans see as unconstitutional? The answer may lie in fear of precedent, because if the NFA falls, the entire structure of federal gun control laws could collapse with it. That's the hidden war, the fight not just over rifles, but over power itself. And it's now in the hands of 9 justices.
Chapter 7. What comes next? The Supreme Court will soon decide whether to hear this case.
If they take it, this could be the biggest Second Amendment showdown since Bruin. If they refuse, the NFA stands, and the federal government keeps one of the most restrictive firearm laws in history. Either way, this battle will define how far your rights truly reach in the modern era.
This story isn't over. It's another chapter in the long, unbroken struggle between freedom and control, citizens and the state, rights and regulation. Stay informed, stay alert, and remember, every Supreme Court decision today shapes the freedoms your children will have tomorrow. If you believe the Second Amendment deserves defending, subscribe to Firearms Rights Advisor, hit the bell icon, and share this video to keep others informed. Because the fight for your rights isn't in the past. It's happening right now.